everyone, and welcome to episode 640 of Good Luck High Five.
We're a podcast for you if you like Magic the Gathering, and I'll just leave it at that.
Great. I'm one of your hosts, Megan.
I'm another one of your hosts, Tyler, and we're really excited to be here.
We really are, and neither of us is named Maria.
Yes.
As you have probably by now discerned when we said our names.
Or if you were watching this when you saw us as full human beings.
You never know. You might have been watching it and you're like, I wonder if one of these people is Maria.
I wish that one of us could pull off one of those Mission Impossible style masks right now and be Maria. That would truly be something.
So good.
Yeah.
And you know what? I really appreciate that they're dedicated, that they still do it every movie.
Yes.
You know, they're like, this is our origins.
This is what we are.
This is where we came from.
Yeah, I wonder if as a writer of a Mission Impossible movie, if you ever feel like, I kind of wish I didn't have to have someone tear their face off
right now.
Maybe you don't, but I wonder if there's been someone who said, if only I didn't have to do this right now.
If only I didn't have to do this. I don't know. Or are you like, this is part of the tradition?
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe you're so in love with it, that you're just like.
I imagine if you're writing on Mission Impossible, I hope you're in love with it.
I hope so too. Yeah, I hope so too. Though, to be fair, the amount of money that probably is being given to you may in fact make that not a requirement.
It doesn't matter at all. Well, you might be wondering, is this a podcast about
Mission
the film
Impossible?
series? Mission Impossible. It's not, surprisingly. But it is, as Tyler said, a podcast about Magic the Gathering. And today we are going to talk about the Tarkir Dragonstorm story.
Yeah.
People have been wondering what is happening.
And they've been wondering that, and they've also been wondering about the Tarkir Dragon story. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I wonder what's happening a lot.
Just
these
a
days.
lot of the time.
Yeah.
And do you know the original Tarkir storyline?
I know just very, very vague outlines of it, but truly I do not. I love to hear that.
The old Tarkir storyline as well, and the new Tarkir storyline, and then the new Tarkir storyline.
Hey.
You'll know what that means
when we get
any minute now. After we cover some more about the Mission Impossible films. But before we get into any of that, we have some people to thank, and foremost amongst them are, of course, you, the listeners, and especially the patrons of this show.
Truly, as we say often, but it never becomes less true. In fact, it only becomes more true.
Yes.
This show could not be made without you. And
it does, in fact, only become more true with time.
Yeah, it really does. And the depth of our thankfulness cannot be expressed in either video or audio form.
No.
We would need a third greater
like
form
some
of communication.
multimedia.
Yeah. Oh, if only.
If I had some clay in front of me right now, I could maybe express
we
the
could
depth
throw
of my
a pot
thankfulness.
that would encapsulate
Convey
that.
it to you.
Yeah.
If you are not yet a patron, please consider becoming one over at patreon.com/GLHF Magic. Truly, whether we express it in words, video, or in some sculpting that I'm going to try to do later, you keep our show possible. It truly would not be possible without you. We only rely on you more as time goes by.
Each passing second.
With each passing second. And you get some really wonderful benefits. Chief amongst them, I think, is access to our Discord.
Yes.
Where you can chat with so many fun people. You can see really cute photos of cats. You can discuss Commander. You can discuss Pauper. You can discuss any format you want. You can just discuss stuff and ask the question, what's going on? Because I don't know.
You really can. And it just the sense of community there, I feel like, is palpable. Like every time I drop in there, it's like, there's just a good vibe going on in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really nice time. So please, again, consider becoming a patron. If you're not already one, we would give you a pun shout out on the show. So how about that? Patreon.com/GLHF Magic. All right. Tyler,
yes.
Are you ready to hear some stories?
I am so ready.
All right, let me take you back to the Tarkir of old.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not super old, because we're going to get there in a second.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
But we're going to go a little ways back to Khans of Tarkir. Khans of Tarkir has, in this moment, just released.
Okay.
We've time traveled to them.
All right, I'm there. I feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of us are experiencing more for the first time, and we're like, this is great.
Yeah.
It's a set that is based around not like shards of Alara, which is like the ally color pairs, but these enemy wedges instead. So it's the first time that we get Abzan and Mardu. Like, these are all words that
Which
we know
is crazy.
now.
I know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Words that you can hardly imagine living without,
But once upon a time, Tyler, we did.
Oh my
Live without
gosh.
them, we did. We also walked uphill both ways to school in the snow.
I remember that.
Year-round.
Yeah. Yep. I remember
Yes.
how those were happening concurrently. Yeah.
And in Khans of Tarkir, there are no dragons. There are no dragons on Tarkir. Like over 1,000 years ago, there was some kind of event that happened, and the dragons went extinct.
Oh my gosh.
And there's this guy named Sarkin who's bummed about it. He's pretty sad. He's dragon obsessed.
If I did know one thing about Sarkin, I do feel like it was that. Yeah,
he is one
He
dragon.
seems to always have this. The word dragon seems to keep coming up when you see him. Yeah.
Absolutely, he's a dragon obsessed lad. So he eventually he sparks. I don't know if it's his grief about no dragons that makes it happen.
Which would be intense.
I am so sad about dragons. I sparked and became a planeswalker.
Especially because he's never experienced a dragon firsthand. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true. Actually,
it's
now
just
that I think
the
about
absence of something, you
Yeah.
know, like, which is a really intense thing to try to fully
what a story, honestly.
pour yourself into, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
What a, feeling the lack of something that you never truly knew. Poetic, really.
Yeah, that really is.
Anyways, he's not about poetry. He's about dragons. So he sparks. He meets Nicol Bolas, who notoriously is a dragon.
Yes.
And also pretty evil.
Yeah.
And also
pretty
bad.
powerful.
And very powerful.
Yeah.
And Nicol Bolas, Sarkin kind of loses his mind.
Makes sense.
And Nicol Bolas kind of nudges the process along. And Sarkin goes absolutely nuts. Rude
well,
for me to say it that way,
I mean,
but it happened.
It is kind of what happened.
And he helps Bolas unleash the Eldrazi, which again, way back in time, Eugene the Spirit Dragon, Nahiri, and Sorin had all trapped them. And Nicol Bolas is like, no, I would like more chaos, please. And so Sarkin goes crazy and helps him unleash the Eldrazi. And oops, everyone hates him now.
Yeah, it does feel like it's a mistake. One that's kind of hard to wash off.
Exactly. That one sticks.
Yeah.
So he goes back to Tarkir.
Okay.
And while he's on Tarkir, he starts hearing a voice in his head.
Okay.
Which is not Nicol Bolas.
Oh.
Right? It's like a different voice. It's a different flavor of having gone crazy than he was before.
All right.
He's a new flavor of it.
Nice.
And then Sorin shows up on Tarkir. Sorin Markov, vampire Vlad. I hate him. My nemesis. Anyways, Nahiri did nothing wrong. That's a different story for a different time. But if anyone ever asks you if you think Nahiri did anything wrong,
you say no.
The answer is no.
You say,
all right, great.
You say, get out of my face.
You got
get out
it,
of
Tyler.
here. Come on, don't even ask me that question.
So Sorin shows up looking for Eugene. Who, again, for those of you who are like, who are you talking about? Eugene, to be like, help me put the Eldrazi back in their cage. But it turns out that Ugin is just gray bones in a grave. They walk through. He goes on this whole. He finds a guy on Tarkir and he puts him into thrall and he's like, lead me to Eugene the Spirit Dragon. And he takes him to this valley, this canyon. And then there's gray bones in a grave. And that's Eugene. And Sorin is like, this is bad. This sucks. And he's also like, oh, this is part of what's made Tarkir a crap place to live. Sorry for my language.
That we have. You're saying that the bones are in
that
Tarkir.
that Eugene died. Because it turns out that part of what was helping dragons thrive on Tarkir was Eugene the Spirit Dragon Daddy.
All right.
He was Dragon Daddy.
Yeah, thank you. I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And he died. And Sorin is like, well, this is bad.
Yeah.
But because he's bad at problem solving. He just leaves.
I was gonna
gets
say
out.
at the point where you're saying he was putting people in a thrall. I feel like you haven't learned all your lessons
No,
at that
absolutely
moment.
not. No.
If you're still thralling people, that's a red flag.
It's bad news.
Yeah.
Okay, but hey, there's still the voice in Sarkin's head, and that turns out is like somehow the ghost of Eugene is like in his head.
All right.
And so he's like trying to find where this voice is coming from. And he runs into Narset. And this back in the day was our first encounter with Narset. And everyone is like, Narset kicks ass.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry for my language again. Wow, everybody.
oopsie daisy.
She kicks butt.
Yeah.
Anyways, and because Sarkin is like kind of clanless / like slightly Mardu, I think maybe, and Narset is Jeskai, they're supposed to be fighting. But Narset is like, no, do you know what? I got this like sign. She's like meditating, and she like gets this sign. A Kirin is there, and she's like, oh, I need to help you find the Nexus.
Wow.
I need to help you. Like, I need to help this guy find what he's looking for.
Okay.
So they have a nice long walk together and they fall in love on their long walk.
All right.
It's very nice. And they get to the Nexus, and usually it like tears people apart.
Okay.
You know, like when they get close.
Sure.
It's like
a black hole type of situation. Okay.
Oh yeah, do you know what? That's a very good analogy. But not Sarkin, because he has a piece of the eye of Eugene, which is like this little, it's like this place, and he has a piece of this place. I don't know. It doesn't tear him apart is the point.
Okay. All right.
But Zergo, Khan of the Mardu, shows up and is like, or like some, a meanie, essentially.
Yeah.
Zergo shows up and is like, hey, Sarkin, you and I have unfinished business and I'm going to kill you. And Narset is like, he has a mission. And so they fight. And first Narset is really kicking his butt. But then Zergo kills Narset.
Oh my!
And Sarkin is like, no, I was just falling in love with her.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And feels really terrible. But Narset is like, get in the Nexus, you dum-dum. That's why we came here. I had a meditation vision that said you have to go in there.
And now I've died, so please do.
I've died, so please do.
Please do.
And so he walks in. That's the end of the arc of Khans.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
I know. But this is back in the day when we got three sets in a block.
Yeah, so it was not a cliffhanger for long.
So then we head into the small set, which is Fate Reforged.
Okay.
Which Sarkin goes to the Nexus, and it's 1,200 years ago. It's a long time ago. It's like a little over 1,000 years ago.
Did they mention anything about him being sort of like jet lagged or anything like that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's immediately what came into my mind. Like, it's one thing to fly across the country, but imagine that you basically have been transported 1,200 years ago.
I don't know. I think if he was jet lagged, if he was time lagged, I guess.
Time lagged, yeah, that's good.
He immediately gets over it because there are dragons here.
Okay, sure. So yeah,
he's just like,
yeah, okay, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of imagine. Yeah,
he's like, look at this. This is incredible.
This is everything I've ever dreamed of.
This is like literally everything I've ever dreamed of. And so it turns out, this is back in the day, Eugene is still alive.
Wow.
And so dragons are still alive. But also, they're like making life hard for the clans, right? This is like back in the day, and the clans, instead of fighting each other, are fighting dragons. They're like, this is how we have to survive.
Sure.
And so Sarkin gets in some fights with some of the clan leaders because
he's like, don't fight the dragons.
Exactly. And they're like, we have to. And then he comes around to the idea. He's like, oh, do you know what? Like in the future that I came from with no dragons, everyone kind of sucked because they were all fighting each other all the time. But here, and they were having these like petty squabbles between the Khans. But here in the past where there's dragons, like the dragons like make people better because they have to like be more like they like really test them. So he's like, dragons are great. Cool.
Yeah.
But there is still the big fight. It turns out that there's this big fight between Nicol Bolas and Eugene. And they're battling it out. And this is what killed Eugene in the past.
Gotcha.
And it turns out he can't really like help that.
Sarkin can't.
Sarkin can't, exactly. Sarkin is like, I'm just a little dude. I'm a planeswalker, but at the end of the day, Nicol Bolas is infamously one of the most powerful planeswalkers, of all time. And Eugene is no slouch either.
Yeah, I get that sense from his cards as well.
Yeah, his cards cards would tell me.
And I mean, they kind of have, you know?
Yes, absolutely. His cards, famously, pretty game-changing.
Pretty good once they come down, yeah.
So he's like, oh, but... So Nicol Bolas does defeat Eugene, but it turns out, like, since Sarkhan is there, he's like, oh, that wasn't what I'm supposed to change. But Eugene, like, died from his injuries in that canyon. So he uses, like, a piece of the eye of Eugene to make this, like, complex little, like, hedron, like, cocoon, essentially, around him with healing magic.
Oh, yeah.
So that instead of, like, being injured by Nicol Bolas and falling into the canyon and dying. He heals. You know, over a lot of time.
Sure.
And then that's essentially Fate Reforged. Like other stuff, there's a lot of like small encounters. You know, like people meet.
Those are the cliff notes.
Yes, this is very much the cliff notes of Tarkir's story.
Yeah.
So then they go. We fast forward back to present.
Gotcha.
But new present day.
Oh. Okay. And is Sarkhan and he can just basically, he
uses the Nexus again
to go back,
to go forward.
Gotcha. Okay.
In this case,
understand.
So he goes forward, and now he meets Eugene again, and he's like, "Don't you know me?" And Eugene is like, "In theory, like I." He's like, "I didn't ever really meet you, but like, thanks for the help."
Yeah, thanks for the assist.
Thanks for the help. And Sarkhan is like, "You were in my head, bro. You were in my head." And Eugene's like, yeah, but that was other future dead me. And I'm not him.
Which I guess makes sense, but it's also confusing. It's trippy.
Exactly. Yeah. And Sarkhan is like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But Narset isn't dead, so that's nice.
Hey, okay. But does Narset know, do they fall back in love, or what's the...
They like meet again, and you know, like at first Sarkhan is like, we know each other, and she's like, get out of town. We don't. But anyways, the eventual answer is like, yes.
I got it. Okay.
Through all the storyline of Dragons of Tarkir, which was the third set, the storyline of Dragons of Tarkir is that like in this future there are now still dragons. But they are now in charge of the clans. And some of them are good and some of them are bad, and you know, they're all just... Tarkir is better, ? Depending on who you ask.
All right.
And Narset sparks at some point. I forget her spark story exactly, but Narset has a planeswalker spark and goes away, and she comes back and she's like, she meets Sarkhan and she's like, dude, I had this crazy experience. I like went to this other place. And Sarkhan's like, you're a planeswalker. Do you want to go planeswalk? And Narset's like, no, I think I have stuff to do here on Tarkir. And Sarkhan's like, okay, me too.
Nice. Classic.
So that's the story of like, that's like the synopsis of the original Tarkir storyline, which the big takeaways are like Sarkhan had to go back in time and make new Tarkir in the future that does have dragons.
Save Eugene.
Yeah. Those are kind of like, those are the very important things that happen. Then we spend some time, like, there's some stuff that happens on Tarkir during the Phyrexian invasion.
Okay.
Right? Like, a lot of dragons get Phyrexianized. That's bad.
Yeah.
As you can imagine.
It does seem like it would be. Yeah.
Dragons already bad.
Yeah.
Phyrexianization of dragons, also bad.
Yeah. Worse.
But they do, they eventually defeat them. And then they do like some kind of, okay, Narset is like, hey, we're like, stuff is bad post Phyrexian war, as it tends to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's, things get injured.
Yes, exactly. Stuff is bad. And so they do this big, I'm trying to remember what the other side of the name of their battle was, but they do this big, like, essentially like calling the spirit dragons.
Okay.
And they're like, these spirit dragons come back to like reappear on Tarkir, and they have a connection to the clans, and it's very nice. And those are some of the dragons that are helping out in the present. But it also reignites. So on Tarkir, dragons have always been born out of storms. Okay, right? They like arrive fully formed. Here they are, cool. Out of a storm. Which is, if your kids are asking exactly how babies arrive.
Yeah, that's how babies are made.
There's a thunderstorm. And then you have a baby.
It kind of works.
It's rough. It's it's rough for them. Yeah. Imagine your first experience of the world being a thunderstorm.
Yeah, that would be.
That just drops you into a hospital. I don't know.
It sounds intense for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, that like these dragon storms, but in the past, right, it was like these like sentient dragons, right, that are like can have a connection to people,
sure,
right? Like even when the clans are battling dragons, they still have the dragons who are like in control of the clans and the present and stuff like that. These dragons that are being born out of these storms, like all of a sudden there are way more dragon storms, just tons of them, and these are like feral wild dragons coming out of these dragon storms.
They don't have consciousness.
No, and they're like, this is bad. These dragons just arrive and want to tear everything to shreds, and they're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. How does Sarkin feel about this?
Sarkin is unsurprisingly pro dragons.
Gotcha. So he's kind of like, hey, y'all.
Exactly.
This is, come on now. Like, let's look at the bright side.
Let's look at the bright
There's
side.
more dragons, you know? Like, sure, it's chaotic, but think of the dragon count.
But think of the dragon count.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what about the person count? It's declining in a bad way.
There's a lot of parallels with like Jungian psychology in that. Yeah, that I at least for when I hear it, that's what I immediately thought of, because the idea of the dragon as like the great unconscious self is like definitely a thing that is like some Jungian people ascribe to.
Wait. I want to talk about this part right now.
Okay,
I want to pause for a second.
Yeah, please.
Tyler, you're telling me that we're going to pause for a moment because Tyler's like, there's some psychology. There's some psychology about dragons.
Well,
there's some mirroring of psychology.
Yeah. I'll say
before we move forward.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, tell me.
I'm no expert, but this is what I know. I know just enough to be dangerous, I would say.
Yeah.
Just like a dragon, probably. In Jungian psychoanalysis, there is an idea of this great unconscious self. And the dragon is sometimes used as a symbol for that great unconscious self. And I would say that the idea of people without like any connection to that great unconscious self, as they were in sort of the old present day Tarkir, or whatever you want to say, the Tarkir before, when Sarkin was first alive, before he went back, like them then directing that like that sort of struggle or aggression at each other versus like having some kind of connection with that great unconscious self is very much like a Jungian idea of like what would be one way to describe the issues with modernity. And so in the idea of going back and like finding those, those dragons, like bringing them back to life or finding them again would be another way of talking about getting back in touch with your deep self, or like the great self within you, like the capital S self. And so there's something about that I really love, like just because these people then find there is a purpose in that, and it's not always, the great self is not necessarily a force of pure good in your life, but the connection to it is like one of the fundamental tenets of being alive and conscious at the same time.
That's amazing. That's sick.
Yeah, I kind of think so too.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's a lot
and that is like what happened. They were like, we're not being the Khans. Like Tarkir as a plane can't be its true self with no dragons.
I think yes. That's really what I was thinking about. Well, it's not the whole. I mean, I really enjoyed that story, but also like that was like adding to it, because I was like, I really.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like it too.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm looking forward to your psychological interpretation of
all right,
what's
yeah,
coming
we'll
now.
see. Yeah, yeah, me too.
Okay, so like I said, they summoned the 5 spirit dragons, which was, I forgot, in part to help them overthrow the like tyrant dragons who were in charge of the clans. Infamously, I feel like one of the best examples of your like, were they tyrannical? Silimgar. We loved Silimgar.
I like the name.
He was cute, but also he had a necklace made of the old like clan leader person. He had a Tassiger necklace. So, Tassiger was a guy, and then he became a necklace on a dragon.
All right, it's complicated, We all have those, we all different aspects of ourselves, like, yeah.
So they summon these spirit dragons to be like, hey, these dragons are actually being really mean to us and making us into necklaces.
Yeah.
And we would like perhaps not that.
It's a reasonable request.
Exactly. So that does help, right? And they like defeat the tyrant dragons, and everyone's living like there are dragons, and all the clans are living in like relative peace, but fighting sometimes.
Sure, of course.
But then there's these dragon storms that are having these like,
that they're just it's a shotgun. There's just like it's a spewing of dragons.
Exactly, spewing of dragons. And Narset feels like really guilty about this. And Narset is like, hey, I'm like, like, I'm sorry. And everyone's like,
is it that awkward when she says, she's like, is she kind of just in the corner and she's kind of like shifting her feet, and then she's like, and she's like, hey, y'all, this is awkward, but
she's like actually specifically, she's like watching two storytellers like at like a story slam.
Okay.
At a Tarkir story slam.
All right, I can picture this.
Like tell the story of what happened when people summon the spirit dragons. And she's like, I was there.
Sure. Yeah, and if that's a tough audience, if you're telling like a mythic story to someone who is like there for the events of it.
Exactly.
That's a tough
like
crowd.
I would be really spooked by it.
and nervous.
Anyways, but then Elspeth shows up and is like, hey, we have to talk. Obviously, like at the end of Ether Drift, there had been like a big dragon storm that came through. And these dragon storms are kind of happening all over. It's not like they're very concentrated on Tarkir.
Sure, but not just in
But
Tarkir.
they're not just there, especially because of the omen paths.
Sure.
These dragon storms can be like happening.
Coming everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like really.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you live in a world where it's kind of dragon centric. Yeah,
but if all of a sudden you're just like trying to have your day, and like it starts raining dragons, you're like, what is this?
Yeah. That's a lot.
All right. Also, by the way, Ajani is here on Tarkir. They run into Ajani, and he's hanging out with the Abzan, which makes sense. The Abzan are very much about like being. They have these things called kin trees, which help them be like connected to their ancestors. And he's also like, they're also like warriors, and Ajani's a warrior. But Ajani was Phyrexianized.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, was there any kind of
Jaya?
Yeah, which is a little awkward.
It is a little awkward. And he's like, everyone's like, hey, buddy.
Can we talk about this?
Like, maybe you should try some therapy or something. And Ajani's like, nope. Look, I'm just some Abzan dude now. Don't talk to me about this. I'm no hero. Like, I don't want to, like, I don't want to do I'm no hero anymore. I'm just a little cat boy with some emotional troubles.
How does Ajani deal with these troubles by like, is Ajani like further embrace his identity as a warrior, and that's like how he's dealing these troubles?
He's just kind of like, right. He is, I think I would just like describe him as just going through the motions. So he's not embracing anything.
Gotcha. So he's kind of dissociated.
Yes. Johnny is definitely dissociated.
I can understand. All right. Okay. Now I understand.
Just gonna be the name of my autobiography. Disassociating with Abzan. Anyways, he's in that. So Narset and Elspeth are like, all right, dude, see you later. I guess we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, trying
solve
to do
this
stuff.
problem.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're gonna go to the Crucible of the Spirit Dragon, which is like the place where Eugene healed back in the day.
Okay.
And there they hear a voice being like, oh, there's like a temple in the Dragonstorms that you can find. Like, find this temple in the Dragonstorms. And they're like, okay. And also Sarkin is there. And Sarkin is like, hey, he also lost his dragon powers during like the Phyrexian thing. And he's having a very hard time about that.
Okay.
And they all get in a fight. And they like Elspeth.
Like a physical fight?
Yeah. Elspeth just like essentially just like backhands him and is like, get out of my way.
Dude. Sometimes we need that, though.
Exactly. Yes. And then Tigum, who is a schemer, notably.
Okay.
Anyways, like finds Sarkin and is like, I can restore your draconic powers. Exactly. And they're like, hey, they like go on a little hunt, and Tigum's like, we need the heart of a dragon, and then there will be a ritual, and then you'll be a dragon.
And if someone sounds like that when they're talking to you, best beware.
That should really have been his first clue, is that Tigum is definitely walking around talking like that.
Like a real schemer.
Yes. So he does like hunt and kill this dragon and like literally bites its heart. He like takes a bite out of its heart. And he does get dragon powers back.
Okay.
But right before they happen, he's like, am I making a mistake?
Wait, right before he bites the heart? Or
Yeah, right before he bites the heart. Well,
right.
He bites the heart.
And then
he feels the power coming on. He's like, was this an oops?
I will say, to bite the heart of a dragon would be an experience. The thing it makes me think of is there's a culture that has like fermented shark, and it's supposed to be one of the most like really intense flavors that exists. And I have always really wanted to try that because it sounds like just like an experience. And that's what I thought of when you talked about
like you're about to bite it and you're like, am I making a mistake?
But also like, but you know that it's going to be an experience. You know that it's going to really take you on a journey. And I'm guessing that's maybe
what Sarkin's going through right after he bites his heart.
Yeah.
So right, like back to, okay, so he turns into Big Dragon. He's like sick, but also mean. And Elspeth and Narset are captured by the Abzan. And they're about to have a meeting with the Abzan Khan, but then a Johnny runs in and he's like, there's a big dragon coming. Guess what? It's our boy Sarkin. Anyways.
What is like as a dragon, what is Sarkin like? What does he
big and red?
Okay, big and red. All right. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
He big.
Yeah.
He big, he red.
And he red. All right.
He a big red 4/4.
Okay.
With flying in haste.
All right.
Specifically.
Yeah, got it.
The
Okay.
size of what we're talking about.
Now I understand.
All right. So, like all this is happening. So the Abzan Khan is like, yeah, get out of here. Like I'm not going to help you, but I'm not going to like get in your way or whatever. I'm not going to imprison you. Mm-hmm. So they head back out to the Dragonstorms.
Okay.
And like, sure, they go into the Dragonstorms, and then there's an omen path in one of them, which are these
pathways between planes.
And on the other side of that omen path, they find Eugene's meditation realm, which is this space that's just like, there's a lot of different ways. This space is cool. The meditation realm is sick.
Yeah, and chill, I would imagine.
Yes, but also sometimes not. Because sometimes when they first walk in, it's just like, this is like shapeless, right? This is like gray, flat, forever, shapeless. But then also it starts responding to their minds. It takes them on like an MC Escher like journey of like puzzles and stairways that don't go anywhere.
That's fun.
And Narset starts experimenting because she meditates a lot.
Sure.
She's a Jeskai monk. And she's like, oh, hey, like I can kind of like work on manipulating this plane with my mind, which is cool because I have the practice of it.
Yeah.
And inside the meditation realm, they also find Jace. And Lute, who's like conked out. He asleep. But it's not normal sleep. He's like he's like out, right? Not just like taking a nap. And so we take like a little brief, like little story
detour.
Thank you. Yes. Tangent into the past, which shows Jace and Vraska, who, Vraska's like, dude, let's just be happy together. We can just the Phyrexian threat is gone. We found this weird fur kid that we could just take care of.
Yeah.
Like, let's just have a chill time. And Jace is like, no, I want to like reshape the world into a place where everything is okay and right. But obviously that's, his definition of okay and right.
And just any one person sort of trying to take that on themselves.
It's like pretty
problematic.
Yeah. Bad news. So Jace is becoming problematic.
For the first time.
Yes, definitely. Notoriously, Jace is problematic for the first time ever. Up until now, he's been fine.
Yeah.
And also, Vraska's like, this is Lute, our child that we found in a vault. Our timeless child that we found in a vault who has some really crazy powers. He has like a map of the multiverse in his head or whatever and all these omen paths. And she's like, I love our child. And Jace is like, our child is not our child. It's a tool that I'm using to reshape the multiverse. And Vraska's like, yeah, wow, you're becoming more problematic for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And so eventually they have a big fight. Okay. And Lute escapes into a Dragonstorm and goes to the meditation realm, but Jace finds it, captures him and puts him into this sleep.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Well, you feel bad for everyone in that situation. I mean, you feel bad for Jace, but also you're like, man, this seems like it's becoming a pattern with you. And like, what, like, come on, now, buddy. Like,
absolutely. And it's also just like, hey, right, like, obviously Jace is working through some trauma being Phyrexianized.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. That's what I was going to ask about Ajani was like, before you said what was going on with Ajani, I was curious how that had affected him,
trauma is the answer. It really did, and now he's dissociating with the Abzan.
Which and instead of dissociating, Jace has like become a little manic,
full villain turn.
Yeah. He's like really like he's leaned into the power, but he's like associating, and this is good. Actually,
yes.
All right, there's more. All right, I've got more to say about this, but you can.
Tell us about it.
All right, well, so I would say again in if we're sticking with the Jungians, like there is this idea. So there's the ego and then there's the self in Jungian psychoanalysis. So and the self, like I said, is like the capital S self. That is like more than what you would think of as your consciousness. It is like a larger thing. And the ego is like your conscious mind. Like the ego is like you as like how you experience the world most of the time if your consciousness is not altered. And so they talk about this ego self axis and that's like what you want to do is to have like a sort of a bridge between you and this self. Yeah. But it needs to be in a like very conscious and like thoughtful way. And the two extremes that many people fall into are either the cutting oneself off completely from that, which is dissociating, or the embracing of that, which is when you identify yourself with that great self, which sounds a lot like what Jace is doing.
Jace is like, I alone am the capital S.
And Jace
self.
is plugged directly. And like also the idea of this great self is that there is this like essentially unlimited supply of energy inside of all this that you could tap into. But to tap into it directly, it's just like it's like licking a nuclear reactor, like it's like not going to go well, like, or you could also think about it just like putting your finger right into like an electrical socket, like
absolutely.
You're going to get a lot of energy.
I really prefer licking a nuclear reactor.
All right. Yeah. You're getting a lot of energy that's getting transferred directly into you, but any human being is not designed to like fully inhabit that. Wow. And so the idea is that if you were to identify with that great self, that is going to almost be like a possession or almost be like that energy is running you. You are not like yourself anymore. You are getting run by that energy. And you are the idea of like grandiosity or like that is what I feel like that's what's happening with Jace.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So we did come back around.
I think
Tarkir, it is the place.
Tarkir, ##young.
So they run into Jace in this meditation realm and they're like, what are you doing here? And it's like the meditation realm is where they all imprisoned Nicol Bolas after the War of the Spark. And specifically, it's like it's Eugene and Nicol Bolas
are both in there.
Yes, because Eugene, like Nicol Bolas is so powerful, he can't be passively imprisoned. Eugene is there like
be just
actively
constantly
watching him. He's like, Eugene is on the great big babysitting job of all time.
I mean, truly, it
of
seems
watching
like
Nicol Bolas.
Yeah, for the rest of eternity, I guess.
To be like, don't destroy all the multiverse.
Do they ever have just conversations between the two of them?
Great question. We don't really learn a lot about what they're doing.
That's what, if I were going to like write a play about this situation, that's what it would be.
It would be like,
the conversations between Nicol Bolas and Eugene.
What are they doing?
Yeah, curious. Because eternity is a long time. Like there's there's plenty of time to have like some really good conversations if you're willing to.
Absolutely. And you'll always come back to them, right?
Yeah.
Like you can think you're done with the conversation, but eventually you're like.
That is true. Those threads are still there. Like they have not been cut. They just have been set down, and they're eventually going to get picked back up.
So they're there, and Nicol Bolas has always had this like gem between his horns, like the gem of becoming or the spirit gem. It goes by some different names, but it's an immensely powerful object.
Okay.
And that's what Jace is here for. They arrive in the they're all there in the meditation realm. They run into him and they're like, oh, Jace needs loot, the little map of the multiverse / Vraska's child. Vraska's like, this is our kid. Stop acting like he's a tool.
Both of them probably, like, there's probably a little bit of a problematic thing with both of their ways of trying to deal with this creature that they found in the vault.
But Jace is definitely infinitely more problematic.
Jace more so for sure.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
So he like teleports to Eugene and Nicol Bolas and like takes the spirit gem and takes all of its energy. And Vraska arrives and is like, freaking stop.
Yeah.
Just come be happy.
Yeah.
Please. And Jace is like, no, I'm going to remake the multiverse without pain and without suffering. And you're like, ah.
Yeah.
And using this, like, right, like he tries to do this, and all that anyone knows is that like it seems like the meditation realm just like disappears into darkness, right? It's like darkness envelops it, and Jace, like, it's all gone. And they're all chucked out.
Ooh.
They're all just kind of like violently evacuated from the spirit
Is this
realm,
true of
or the
Eugene
meditation
and
realm.
Nicol Bolas as well, or we don't know about that?
We don't know about, right? All we see, I think they also seem to kind of like disappear, right?
Gotcha.
Like whatever it is that unmakes the meditation realm seems to also unmake Jason, unmake the dragons.
But we don't know necessarily exactly where they go.
Exactly. They just kind of all vanish. Question mark forever, but no.
Yeah.
Anyways, they all the rest of them get
unlikely.
Yeah, they all get like violently ejected, and they find themselves back on Tarkir. And we have Vraska and Elspeth and Narset and Lute, and they're all like, Lute, we're really sorry that Jace made you go to bed for forever. And he's like, yeah, that really sucks.
Not ideal.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, there's still other trouble, which is that Sarkin is Big Bad Dragon Boy back on Tarkir.
I forgot about that.
And they're like, along with everything else that's
now
happening,
we have to deal with
first
this.
Jace in the meditation realm, and now Sarkin back on Tarkir. Like, what the freaking heck? And Ajani is finally though, like Narset is like, I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna kill Sarkin, and I'm probably gonna die in the attempt. And Ajani like sees this about to happen, and he's like, I've been dissociating long enough.
Yeah, nice,
it's time to wake up. And he like jumps into the fray. And you know, the battle, it's raging all over.
Sure.
And then Eugene shows up and is like, you know, he also just like backhands Sarkin. Anyway, like specifically, Eugene doesn't have fire. He has ghost fire because he's a spirit dragon.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so he like ghost fires Sarkin, which is also what happens when your boss just stops giving you assignments at work and stops paying you. You've been ghost fired.
Yeah, but doesn't say anything to you.
Doesn't say anything to you directly.
No. Okay, all right.
So like Sarkin's dragon form like is consumed by ghost fire. And Sarkin disappears, but he's not. We do know that he's not dead. Eugene is like, hey, I can take control of the Dragonstorms. I can rein these in. But you all, bad news. Nicol Bolas is free.
Yeah, that does seem like bad news.
Yeah, the guy who notoriously built, commandeered a whole plane, the whole plane of Amonkhet.
Made it worship him.
Yeah, made it worship him and made them make like thousands upon thousands of zombies, of some really messed up zombies. That guy.
He's out.
Who tried to trap you all on Ravnica and despark you all for his own power. That guy.
He's running free.
Yep. He's out there. And also, we get this like final image. There's this like silvery lake. And then in the midst of that, there's like a blue cloak. And that's the end.
All right. When you say silvery lake, is that sort of just appearing? Is that like a vision, or is it like?
I think it's kind of like, right. It's like what happened after the meditation realm. Like, we don't know.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like that kind of space of that, that space of like, where is this?
Sure. It's like a liminal space of some kind.
Yes, exactly.
But and are people seeing that, or is this like a vision given to us, the audience, or is this
to us, the audience?
Gotcha.
So yeah.
All right.
That's that.
Oh my. Well, that is really quite a ride.
Yeah. It is a little wild of how much of the Tarkir storyline is not on Tarkir because it is in the meditation realm.
That makes sense.
But it is Dragonstorm related, right?
Yeah.
Like they go to the meditation realm.
And there's dragons there too.
There are dragons. Yes. Notoriously two
big
two of the most dragons.
Yeah, they are the dragonist of the
multiverse.
dragons. Yeah.
I would argue that they are, they're the two daddy dragons.
They're the two daddy dragons, yeah.
Of everybody.
Yeah.
So, Jace is still out there. He doesn't have loot anymore though. Loot is at least for now. He does get passed around like, you know, like a racer's baton.
Yeah.
Poor
I feel
guy.
like, yeah, there's the sort of using him as a tool, but then there's the sort of infantilizing of loot too.
That's
that feels
true.
like, you know, like it could, I mean, who knows? Maybe loot might want that.
Loot
but
is a little bit kid-like. And he is a little bit map-like, which is a tool.
Yeah. So they're kind of just like glomming onto some of the aspects of him. But what about like the full loot? You know what I mean?
Another psychological problem for us, Tyler.
I really think so.
What about loot as a whole?
What about loot? Yeah. Loot's own journey of trying to become whole.
You know, I will say I was always like, you know, Nicol Bolas is like such a central character of Magic and always has
been for a long time. Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, do you know what? Of course, after War of the Spark, he's gone, quote unquote. He's like gone. But there was always a time he's gonna come back
at some point.
Yeah. But I was kind of surprised that it was already.
Sure. Yeah. That's true. It hasn't been that long.
It hasn't been that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me wonder because I've always been a fan. I was like, bring the Eldrazi's back. I like those spaghetti arm boys.
Yeah. I mean, so many arms, some of them.
So many.
Countless.
So many arms. And I felt like Edge of Eternities was maybe because like the Eldrazi famously are like, right, they're these what's the word? These like eldritch kind of creatures that live in these spaces that aren't quite comprehensible to the normal, to like the human mind.
Yes.
I was always like, bring them back. And Edge of Eternities to me felt like the place where they could maybe be.
Yeah, that makes
They're like
truly
hanging out there.
Yeah, just kind of.
But this makes me think, oh, we're not going back to them first.
Sure. Because Nicol Bolas is now kind of like front and center. Yeah.
Although he was the one originally who freed them. And Emrakul is famously in Innistrad's Moon right now. So maybe he has his first stop to make.
Yeah, maybe it's both. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's it could be all of them.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question. So are the Eldrazi, and this is maybe like when I feel like this maybe is a similar question to sometimes when you're like, in all of superhero lore, who are the most powerful superheroes, you know? But I'm just curious, is there a consensus about whether like, is Nicol Bolas more powerful than the Eldrazi, or are the Eldrazi, you know, like I'm just curious if there's any kind of like do
you know what? That's a great question. And all I can give you honestly is my interpretation, which is that I believe, it's very hard because I would say that they're both like apex powers.
Of different types.
Because Nicol Bolas is like the very conscious scheming kind, who's just like, I want all of this power.
Yeah.
I was once, right, he came before there was like this whole big event in Magic's past where Planeswalkers used to be essentially immortal and could do it, like immensely powerful. And he comes from that era. And he's kind of always looking to get back to that kind of power of being the most powerful and immortal and unstoppable. And is very scheming and smart about it. And the Eldrazi very much embody that mindless kind of like draw on life. They're not about like, they're not plotting. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna go to this plane and take, you know, everything from this.
There's not a plan except just like
consume. They're just like mindless consume. They're also deeply unstoppable. Right? I think if we're talking about like raw power, I think it's probably the Eldrazi.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I feel like that's kind of the sense that I got.
But Nicol Bolas is potentially, you could also say like, but he's more of a threat because he has like a plan that he's laying out.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents about it.
It reminds me a little bit of like in Greek mythology, like the Titans and like the Olympic gods. You know what I mean? Like there's like the Titans are like these like kind of like unstoppable or unfathomable forces.
Yes.
And they came before maybe the gods, but also like the Olympic gods have like this idea of like what
they have like
there's
structure.
Consciousness to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, they're all spooky.
They're all spooky. We do know that much.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to our sponsor, Card Kingdom. CardKingdom.com/GLHF, the place to go for all of your Magic needs. We always, you know, there's just so much at Card Kingdom that you can get. We always talk about singles. You know, like if you need Magic cards, order them. They'll ship them to you so fast.
Yes.
But they also have some really cool stuff. They have this, like, they have a rookie playmat.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yes, it has like the different parts of the battlefield on it.
Yeah.
So if you have someone who is learning how to play the game,
Yeah.
you can get them one of those. They also have this hat that I'm kind of in love with, which is their like retro little sunset hat with their logo.
Yeah, that is cool actually. Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Right? They just have great stuff. They also have this great like hoodie right now, which has this like little skull on it.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah, skull and some flowers.
Skull and flowers.
Doom and bloom, as they call it.
Yes, which is their name for it. So anyways, like not just Magic cards, but so many other great like things. If you just want to rep Magic, if you want to be like, hey, they have like their little command center, which is what they call it.
Oh yeah,
which
yeah,
is you can put it in the middle of the table, and it has like everyone's little command zone.
Little places
it has
to put where your exile and your graveyard and
exactly. It has like little ways to track commander damage from the other players. It's so great. The point is, they're not just selling you what already exists. They're dreaming up some sick stuff.
Yes.
Thank you as well to Dragon Shield, our wonderful sponsor. Go get your Commander Arcade sleeves or your Rainbow Feldegriff sleeves.
They are just beautiful.
They're so great.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to make custom sleeves of your own as well. Like you can order these GLHF ones. We love them. You can just order some normal Dragon Shields in like the best array of colors.
Yes.
Because they're so good. You can get them with Dragon Shield's original art, which has sick dragons.
Cool. Yes.
You can get them with their other licensed art. You can get like Gremlin sleeves.
I mean, we've
from
seen
the film Gremlins.
Yum.
Yes. I always sleeve Maria's decks in the Gremlin sleeves when she's not paying attention. So you know what? You too can get sleeves to play a bit on your friends.
Yeah.
Or you can get your own custom sleeves, and they make it so easy, and they're so like they're the same great Dragon Shield quality.
Yes.
So make sure you use our affiliate link down in the show notes. And if you're ordering something besides our sleeves, use code GLHF at checkout for 5% off your order. All right, Tyler, that's today's episode. How do you feel?
I feel great. I mean, that was really, I my mind went on a journey, which I always appreciate. And it was really fun to, I just love, there's something obviously timeless about storytelling.
Yeah.
And I just love getting a story told to me. So I really appreciated that.
I love telling a story.
Yeah. Well, it was a good combo then.
And thank you so much. I feel connected. I feel more connected to the capital S self.
Hey, now that's
as a result.
Hey, I'm very happy to hear that. That has become in the last year. I have. It's a longer story, but I really have found a lot of joy in that idea. And so I'm happy to hear you say that.
But not too much connection, Tyler.
No, you don't want to identify.
We don't want you going to the meditation realm.
No. Please, if you see me start to do that, please stop me. Yeah.
If I see you going on about Nicol Bolas.
Yeah. Or talking about becoming a dragon.
Or talking about becoming a dragon.
Because I think Sarkin was like another example of that same idea. Like he was really
true.
like he identified with the dragon instead of being like, I want to have a relationship with the dragon.
Or if I see you stealing a creepy furry child.
Yes. If you see me doing that, really just
we'll
tackle
really
me.
have we'll really have a long conversation.
Please, yes, thank you.
And honestly, same, everyone.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Reminding you, become a patron if you're able. Patreon.com/GLHF. The number one way to become connected to our capital S self.
Yeah, but not identified with it.
But
you have a relationship with it, but it's not going to take over your life. It's going to be just like it's going to be a source of energy, but it's not going to overcome.
Just like our Discord.
Yeah.
Wow. Really
we did it. We really did it.
I'm really sorry to the history of psychology for misusing it in this way. Thank you to our sponsors, Card Kingdom, and to Dragon Shield. And of course, thank you so much to you all.